Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We will discuss today maxillofacial trauma. This is a very important topic. What is facial trauma? Facial trauma is defined as injury to the soft tissue of the face, including the ears, and to the facial bony structures. Facial trauma may result in hemorrhage and airway obstruction accompanied by multi-system involvement. As many as 60% of patients have associated injuries. Etiology and incidence. The isolated injuries are there, but the multiple systems are involved in cases of facial trauma. The other systems, it is 20 to 50%. Nasal and mandibular fractures, most common in the community emergency departments. The mid-face and zygomatic injuries, most common in trauma centers. They are referred to trauma centers, big trauma centers. 25% of women with facial trauma, it is the result of domestic violence. The incidence of concomitant cervical spine injury with facial fractures, it is there, and it is very important. This is a diagram to show the different bones and sutures. You are already very familiar in your previous knowledge of anatomy. Here, starting from upwards, there is a frontal bone, then there is a maxilla, mandible, sphenoid bone, and nasal bone, different bones and different sutures which are uniting these bones. This is very important as far as the classification of this facial trauma it is concerned. We will later on discuss it. Emergency management and resuscitation. The emergency management, it is according to the ATLS guidelines. This ATLS, what is this ATLS? It is Advanced Trauma Life Support. This is a guideline that is used in almost all countries worldwide. It is consisting of this primary survey, in which the airway, breathing, circulation, dysfunction of CNS, and exposure in a controlled environment. These are the parts of primary survey. It is done in a very short time. The time is 2 minutes for primary survey, in which you are to look for this airway, breathing, circulation, dysfunction of CNS, and exposure in controlled environment. This ATLS, it is discussed in a separate lecture. It has already been discussed. Then the resuscitation, the primary survey and resuscitation, it is going side by side. Then the secondary survey, this is the detailed examination from head to toe. And then the definitive management plan. This is the fourth part of this ATLS. So the ATLS, it is consisting of primary survey, resuscitation, secondary survey, and definitive management plan. Now the most important, it is the airway. The most urgent problem or complication, it is the airway compromise. Now, what are the usual causes of respiratory obstruction? Oronasal airway block by blood clot, vomitus, foreign body, denture, saliva, or any bony piece. Then there is a backward fall of tongue. Again, this is blocking the airway. Occlusion of nasopharynx and oropharynx in a maxilla fracture. The midface, when fractured, it is displaced downwards and backwards, and if this occurs with the mandibular fracture, that is accumulated, the tongue is also displaced downward and backwards, adding to airway compromise and obstruction. So the intubation is indicated in this case. This occlusion of nasopharynx and oropharynx, it is usually in the maxilla fractures, and in emergency situation, the maxilla can be grasped by hand, disimpacted and pulled forward, and also the tongue can be pulled forward to clear the airway. This is in emergency situation, just to buy the time for definitive airway, and sometime the surgical airway, it is needed. Then the hematoma in the floor of mouth, edema of the larynx, tongue, posterior oral cavity, and then the surgical emphysema. These are the causes of respiratory obstruction when there is airway compromise, and this is very emergency situation. And endotracheal intubation, it is needed, and sometimes the surgical airway, cricothyroidotomy or tracheostomy, it is needed. Cleaning of oral and nasal cavity, just by chin lift and jaw thrust, and maintaining the position of the patient to prevent the fall of tongue backward, and then the maxillary disinfection, as already said. These are the few things which are important to clear the airway. Intubation, avoid nasotracheal intubation, and may not want rapid sequence intubation. What is this rapid sequence intubation? This is a medical procedure involving a prompt intubation of GA, prompt induction of GA, and subsequent intubation of the trachea in emergency room. Here you give a short anesthesia and you intubate the patient. This is in emergency situation. Emergency management and resuscitation. Airway management options. There are different airway management options. Awake intubation, endotracheal tube, it is inserted. Laryngeal mask airway, fiber optic intubation, lateral or semi-prone position, percutaneous transtracheal jet ventilation, retrograde intubation, cricothyroidotomy, and tracheostomy. These are the different options, starting from the simpler and going towards the surgical options, cricothyroidotomy and tracheostomy. Then the hemorrhage control. This is very important. Usually the bleeding from facial trauma, it is not so much, and a very major trauma, laceration, blast injury, ballistic injury, penetrating or gunshot injury, it is causing the massive life-threatening bleeding. How you control the hemorrhage? There are different options: direct pressure and management of fractures, correct the fracture, and then the nasal hemorrhage. It may be controlled by anterior and posterior packing and ligation or cautery of the bleeders, and then the packing and underrunning the area. And then the other options, currently they are embolization of the bleeding vessel, or at last the external carotid artery ligation above the superior thyroid artery. These are the different ways of managing bleeding. So the patient, if the patient comes with facial trauma, there is bleeding from this traumatic site. Patient is conscious. You ask the patient to sit forward, and if the patient is unconscious, you manage the patient on their side, so to prevent the blood going deep into the airway. This is very important. This is to just minimize the risk of blood or a dental fragment obstructing the airway. This is very important thing. The management of massive mid-face bleeding, it requires some time intubation and then the anterior and posterior nasal packing. Specific inflatable nasal balloons, they can be used to control the bleeding, and if these balloons are not present, Foley's catheter balloon, they can be used, and they are inflated to control the bleeding. This is very important in emergency situation. The principles of management: ATLS emergency management. Then the other things important, they are pain management, control of infection, antibiotics, tetanus toxoid, management of soft tissue injuries, skin, muscle, facial nerve, parotid duct, management of cranial and orbital injuries, management of intra-abdominal, thoracic and pelvic injuries, and management of facial fractures, and then the management of fractures of the long bones. This is important because just to see there is a facial trauma, and you may not miss the other parts of the body and the injuries in the other sides. These are very important, and they can kill the patient if you are ignoring these injuries and not managing well in time. So treat the patient as a whole, managing all the organs, all the systems, and all the parts of the body. Now, a few points in the history, these are very important. What was the mechanism of injury, and was the patient mobile, restrained, or stationary? Is the injury the result of blunt or penetrating trauma? And at the same time, was the object that caused the injury mobile or stationary? Can the degree of energy transfer be estimated? Are there any associated thermal or chemical injuries present? All these things are very important. Where is the location of any facial pain or numbness? Are there vision problems such as diplopia present? Does the movement of mandible produce pain? Is there an abnormal bite present? These are points in the history, they are very important. Now the external bony facial skeleton, it is composed mainly of the frontal bone. I told just a few minutes ago. Frontal bone, temporal bones, nasal bones, zygomas, maxilla and mandible. These are the main bones, and the other bones, ethmoid, lacrimal, sphenoid bones, they are contributing to the inner portion of the orbits. So you can divide the face in two thirds. The upper third above the superior orbital rim, the middle third, that the mid face, it is a superior orbital rim down through the maxillary teeth, and the lower third, it is consisting of the mandible and mandibular teeth. So these in this way you can divide this face into parts. Physical examination. First, inspect the face for deformity and asymmetry, anophthalmos, proptosis, ocular integrity, ocular movements, nasal septum for position, integrity and presence of septal hematoma. Is there a epistaxis or a CSF neuroria? This is very important. Complete neurological examination must be performed on any patient with suspected facial trauma, and here the examination of the cranial nerves, it is very important, especially second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh nerve. The examination of these nerves, it is very important. Then sensation, test all three major branches of the trigeminal nerve. Then the motor function, assess facial nerve by having a patient wrinkle forehead, smile, bare teeth and close eyes tightly. So these are the tests for this seventh nerve, facial nerve. Palpation of facial structures, the infraorbital and supraorbital ridges, zygoma, nasal bones, lower maxilla and mandible. Assess for tenderness, bony deformities, crepitus and false motion. Malocclusion or step of indentation may be a sign of mandibular fracture. This is very important in physical examination. Then a few investigations which are important besides this history and physical examination. Here the facial plain films, these were routinely done previously. Largely it is nowadays replaced by computer tomography. The plain films for mandible, it is used to best evaluate the mandibular fractures. These are the panoramic films, and then the computer tomography CT and MRI, these are the other tests. The CT scan, it is the most informative radiographic examination for head and neck trauma. The axial and coronal facial CT with bone and soft tissue window, and usually 2 to 3 mm sections they are taken. CT scan offers a viable, cost-effective alternative to plain films. Very helpful in the evaluation of facial trauma when the facial edema, lacerations, other injuries or altered level of consciousness limit the usefulness of clinical examination. So here the CT scan, it is done. MRI, it has a limited role in the evaluation of facial trauma due to insensitivity of MR to fractures. It is used to provide complementary information to CT scan in the evaluation of eye and its associated structures. Special radiologic examination, angiography, sometimes they are required in a few situations. Angiography, MRI, modified barium swallow and esophagogram. Now we discuss mandibular fractures. The mandibular fractures, they are common in young males. And what are the causes? Assault, motor vehicle accidents, sports and gunshot wounds. The mandibular fractures, they are diagnosed clinically after often because of deranged dental occlusion. And there is a numbness over the distribution of mental nerve. There are different ways of classification of mandibular fractures. This is a diagram to show different parts of the mandible, and here is given the percentage of fractures. The most common fracture site, it is the neck of the condyle. It is the neck of the condyle. Here it is written 36% of the fractures, they are at the neck of the condyle. And then the angle of the mandible, this is the other side. It is about 20% or so. This is the other side, that is very common. And the fracture, it is through the angle of mandible and going through the last tooth. And then the third point of weakness, it is the region of the canine tooth in the body of the mandible, and it is the fracture incidence, it is 21% or so. Then the symphysial fracture, they are 15%, and other fractures, alveolus and ramus and coronoid, these are in very small percentage. Classification by site, just I told you, symphysial or parasymphysial, body, ramus, coronoid, condyle, alveolus and angle. So this is the classification by site. I just told. This is a diagram to show the anatomical classification. Classification by favorability. Favorable and unfavorable. This is another way of classifying these fractures. This is a diagram to show different fractures which are favorable, unfavorable, and most of the time with the fracture it is undisplaced. The fracture sites, they are there and they are undisplaced. It is favorable, and at the fracture site they are displaced. They are unfavorable. You can see these diagrams. Then the classification by the type of fracture: open versus closed fractures. When there is open injury and there is underlying fracture, it is open fracture, and when there is no superficial injury and there is fracture, it is closed. Fracture pattern: it is comminuted, oblique, transverse, spiral, green stick. Then pathological fractures: these fractures, they are secondary to bone disease. For example, after osteogenic tumors, osteoporosis. These are different fractures. The first diagram, it is showing the simple fracture, and then the second diagram, it is showing the green stick fracture, and then the third diagram, it is showing the comminuted fracture. The other way of classification, it is the dental classification. You can divide the fractures into class 1, 2, 3. So these are the different types of fractures. Then the angles classification, again class 1, 2, 3. Now, how will you manage these fractures? The principles of management of these mandibular fractures, they are same as for all other fractures in the body. And what are these? Reduction, fixation, immobilization, rehabilitation. And in the previous years, the reduction and immobilization was often achieved by wiring the teeth together, what is known as intermaxillary fixation or maxillomandibular fixation. This was the treatment. Nowadays, this technique is largely superseded by use of open reduction and internal fixation, utilizing titanium fixation plates secured by screws. So the recent trends, they are of open reduction and internal fixation. So this is the maxillomandibular fixation, closed reduction. This was the procedure that was done previously most of the time. Today it is done, but the open reduction and internal fixation, this is the treatment of choice most of the times. This is the maxillomandibular fixation. These are the open reduction and internal fixation by plates. And straightforward mandibular fractures, they are treated with open reduction internal fixation, which have 2 mm diameter, screws engaging single bone cortex, monocortical bones. They are these small plates are said to be load sharing. The fractures are reduced and load is shared between native bone and plate. With the more complex or cumulative fractures, larger plates and screws up to 2.7 mm diameter may be utilized. They are termed fracture or reconstruction plates. They are regarded as load bearing and bicortical fixation may be utilized. Now, what is the timing of definitive treatment for mandibular fractures? The optimal time, it is after the 24 to 48 hours after injury. This is the optimal time. It is depending upon the state of the patient. It may be postponed depending upon the situation of the patient. Then the management by type of the fracture. Coronite, green stick, unilateral, non-displaced fractures. These are managed just by observation with soft diet, analgesics, oral antibiotics, and close follow-up. Physiotherapy exercises for 3 months, and may consider maxillomandibular fixation for severely displaced coronite fractures. Then the favorable minimally displaced non-condylar fractures, and may consider close reduction and 4 to 6 weeks of maxillomandibular fixation. The condylar fractures, the condylar neck fractures are treated with open reduction internal fixation with better technology and endoscopic assisted surgery, and they can be done via intraoral route. Displaced fractures, symphysial, parasymphysial, tend to be vertically unfavorable. Body fractures almost always unfavorable. Ankle fracture in general have the highest complication rate. Ramus fractures, isolated ramus fractures are rare because it is protected by the masseter muscle. The complications, surgical complications, they are chin and lip hypothesis, osteomyelitis, malunion, non-union, plate exposure, marginal mandibular nerve injury, necrosis of condylar head, and temporomandibular joint ankylosis, dental injury. These are the complications after surgery. Then the maxillary fractures. The matrix of maxilla absorbs energy with impact. There is a high energy transfer when to cause this maxillary fracture, and sinusitis is a potential complication afterwards. Buttress system, vertical buttresses, nasomaxillary, zygomaticomaxillary, pterygomaxillary, nasal septum. Then the horizontal beams, frontal bar, inferior orbital rims, maxillary alveolus and palate, zygomatic process, greater wing of the sphenoid, median lateral pterygoid plates, mandible. Leaford classification and major buttresses. The diagram on the left, it is showing the Leaford classification. Leaford 1, it is the low maxillary fracture. There is a transverse maxillary fracture. It involves anterolateral maxillary wall, medial maxillary wall, pterygoid plates, septum at the floor of nose. The midface fractures are often accompanied by significant facial swelling, and this makes the palpation of skeleton difficult. The characteristic finding is mobile maxilla, which tend to be displaced backward and inferiorly. This can compromise airway and results in an anterior open bite. There is an inability to close front teeth together, and often the infraorbital nerve, it is injured, resulting in altered sensations. This is the Leaford classification. Leaford 1, there is a transverse maxillary fracture, and that is involving the anterolateral maxillary wall, medial maxillary wall, pterygoid plates, septum at the floor of nose. The number 1, it is the Leaford 1. Leaford 2, that is the pyramidal. It is caused typically from a superiorly directed force against the maxilla. It involves nasofrontal suture, orbital foramen, rim and floor, frontal process of the lacrimal bone, zygomaxillary suture, lamina papricea of the ethmoid, pterygoid plate and high septum. So this is the Leaford 2 fracture shown in the diagram by number 2. And then the Leaford, then the Leaford 3, this is the craniofacial disjunction. It separates the facial skeleton from the base of the skull, typically caused by high velocity impacts. It involves nasofrontal suture, zygoma, and zygomatic arch, pterygoid plates and nasal septum. With Leaford 2nd and 3rd fractures, the orbit is involved to a greater or lesser degree. Where the skull fractures occur in combination with facial fractures, or the fractures extend into frontal or ethmoid sinuses, they are classified as craniofacial. And for the management, there is a joint approach from the neurosurgical and maxillofacial department. It is required. If the fractures occur at all levels of the face, this is called panfacial. Now, what is the treatment? Early repair, single stage, extended access approach, rigid fixation, immediate bone grafting, resuspension of the soft tissue. These are the different important things in the management. The maxillary fractures indicate significant force transfer, and hence they are often associated with other injuries. The other injuries must be excluded. Bleeding from the pterygoid venous plexus, it may be occult and it may be very dangerous. So beware of this bleeding from the pterygoid venous plexus. The management by Lee-Ford classification. Lee-Ford 1, reduce rigidity, maxillomandibular fixation and fixation of the zygomatic bar, and Lee-Ford 2, stabilization of the ZM buttress, maxillomandibular fixation, nasofrontal process and inferior orbital rim. Lee-Ford 3 usually requires coronal flap for adequate exposure for exploration and mini plate fixation. So the treatment of maxillary fractures, in all but entirely undisplaced fractures, it involves open reduction and internal fixation, utilizing a variety of mini plates or micro plates. The fixation is usually placed along main facial buttress for optimal strength and bone quality to hold screws. These are the different diagrams to show the management of all these three types: Lee-Ford 1, 2, 3. Now the complications. Surgical complications, they are malunion, non-union, plate exposure, palpable or observable plates, forehead or cheek hypothesis, osteomyelitis and dental injury. Thank you. This is all for today's discussion. A part of this lecture, it will be discussed on next time. Thank you very much.